Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Hi, Frank.
Hi. Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Good to see you, and good to see
Yeah,
everyone
good to
else
see you as
here.
well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think we could start with our presentation about getting certified DP-700 and about the Microsoft Fabric environment CI/CD monitoring and security, right? So I think
Excellent. I hope
first of
that's what
all,
everyone's here for today. Yep, that's what we're
yeah,
that's what we're talking
yeah, but
about.
at least that's why I'm here, right? Okay. So
Indeed.
So maybe we just introduce ourselves, right? So my name is Frank Geisler. I'm from Germany, and I'm a long-term Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I think I'm in my 11th year now. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and lately I did a lot of stuff with Microsoft Fabric and with Microsoft real-time intelligence. And well, I'm not alone, right, Stephanie?
That's right. You're here with me. I'm
Exactly.
Stephanie Bruno, also a data platform MVP and an MCT. Neither of us put that on our intro slides, but also an MCT.
True.
I have not been an MVP as long as Frank, but I am now. I am here joining you today from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And fun fact, it's about 9 degrees Fahrenheit here, and my furnace decided to stop working. So if you hear like a clattering noise, that could be my teeth chattering. Apologies in advance for that. All right, so enough about me. Let's meet our moderators. So we have three excellent moderators here today. We have Mihail, Francis, and Rob. So if you are here watching us live today, you're in luck because you have all kinds of experts that will be answering your questions. So don't be shy,
Oh
ask
yes.
any questions you have. You will have all the right resources here to get your questions answered. So with that, let's just kind of talk a little bit of an intro here. What are we going to be going over today? So, like Frank mentioned, we're here to talk about the Microsoft Fabric environment, some details on that. Hopefully, you have also been following along with some of the previous sessions, but if not, they're recorded, so you can always go back and watch them. And there are just a few more live sessions coming up. We've got Microsoft Fabric Administration and Governance, and then two open Q&As. These will be great times to go ask more
Yes.
questions of some of these experts here. And next up is the big FabCon, the Fabric Conference coming up in Vegas. I can't believe how soon it is. It's just next
Yes.
month. Yes, and I know Frank is
Mind
very
blowing.
excited. He's doing a pre-con there. So if you don't get enough
Yes.
of learning about DP-700 today from Frank, you can go and learn from him in person. Did you have anything you wanted to say about your session, Frank?
Yeah, well, I'm not doing this on my own, so I will do this with Kevin Chant, and we are really looking forward to everyone coming to Las Vegas and to join our session on DP-600 and DP-700, and we will give this on the Sunday. I don't know the exact date, but if you go to FabCon, I think you will figure out.
Yeah, that will be awesome. I'm sure it'll be a really great session. And of course, there are other really good pre-cons. Of course, we want you to go to Frank's, but there are other good ones also, as well as a day of post-cons. Fantastic
Yeah.
sessions from the product team and from community. One of my favorite things about the conference is the Ask the Experts section and the community lounge. Those are great places to go talk to people, learn more about the community and resources, as well as if you have a specific problem with something you're trying to figure out, you can go talk to the experts there as well. So you
Yeah.
can see you've got a code up here. You can register for a discount. Again, highly encourage you to join us in Vegas.
Will you be at the community zone or at the Ask the Experts?
I think I will. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I would love
me,
to meet
me,
some
me
more
too.
friends and
So
super. So you
yeah,
can come meet us
so
there.
exactly, you can meet us there.
Yep. Awesome. All right, and now I've already put this next slide up. This you may have seen a little bit about this on LinkedIn or social media, but we've got the first Power BI Data Viz World Championships coming up. So it started last week on Friday on the 14th. It's 4 weeks, four challenges, four finalists, and then the finalists will get they'll get to go to FabCon. They'll get their ticket comped as well as I think hotel. So if you're trying to find a way to get to the conference, this could be a really excellent opportunity. This will be the first one. So in addition to the prize, you get bragging rights for being the Power BI Data Viz World Champ. So definitely check this out. I think we've got the link coming up here.
Yeah.
AKMS, GC, PBI Champ. Definitely give it a shot. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. It will.
Yeah. Are you going to be entering?
No, I'm not.
No.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I could win. I've seen a lot of things people are posting, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'm more like a technical guy and not like a graphical guy.
Yep, same here. All right, so definitely check that out. And then also, there's just discounts all over the place. Discounts for FabCon, discount for this exam. So when you're ready, get yourself signed up with this discount code for 50% off. It'll make it a lot easier. Hopefully there'll be some more discounts coming, but as of now, we only know of this one. So, go through all of these sessions, learn everything you can about the exam and what to expect. And then you can get a voucher for 50% off and then sign up for when you're going to be taking it. And I think we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the specifics of the exam later in the hour, but
yes.
Definitely just keep track of this discount code. We'll show it again at the end as well. So quick reminder, this is a very live and interactive session. And I think in addition to our three fantastic moderators, Francis, Mihail, and Rob, we oftentimes get bonus experts that join the chat and are happy to help.
Yeah.
So again, no questions are not good questions. So ask anything you have, and everybody in the chat is here to help.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we wanted to kind of get through this this intro stuff quickly because we've done this a few times. So again, if you want to get into a little bit more detail about any of the intro stuff, watch some of the earlier sessions and get caught up on that. But we're going to be talking today about managing the Fabric environment, CI/CD,
exactly.
monitoring, and security.
Yes.
So this is going to be actually a pretty big section of the DP-700. We're going to go over these three. The reason that these three appear together, even though they may feel a little bit disjointed, is because they're all related to managing the overall Fabric environment. So rather than just completing a specific task in Fabric. So this is pretty, it's definitely a big section on the exam.
Yeah, that's true. So, I think, yep. I think the thing is, or to mention here is that first of all, the CI/CD is for bringing stuff in, and then after you bring stuff into Fabric, you can monitor it, and you have to also to have the security on this. And I think this is, as Stephanie already said, this is why these are combined.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will go into a little bit more detail on, what CI/CD is. But I did notice in the chat there are some pretty funny suggestions for what CI/CD stands for. So, feel free to add on to that. What was it? It was continuous insights and continuous digging. I saw that one on there. So we will actually go into what CI/CD really is in terms of what you can expect on the exam. So don't get stuck on what you're seeing in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we're going to cover today, and I think Frank is going to tell us a little bit more about what to expect on the exam.
Exactly. So in this section, we will talk a little bit about the DP-700 exam, and so what this is all about is all about the skills you have to have as a data engineer, right? So how to get data in, how to transform data and stuff like this. And I think if we are looking at the next slide, there is a little bit more detail we can see, right? So this is yeah, well, this is on the one hand what you are or what's tested in this exam, right? And on the other hand, what's a good thing is if you are passing the test, you will be a Fabric data engineer. How cool is that, right? And so, well, what you should know, apart from the things we will discuss here, are things like, for example, structured query language like SQL, right? But most of the data engineers know this already. PySpark is also a very big topic, and for sure, which is maybe not so common to most people coming from the data space is the Custo query language, KQL, which is used to query the real-time intelligence databases, the KQL databases, right? It's more like KQL is coming more like from the originating from the log analytics workspaces, but now through the real-time intelligence functionality within Microsoft Fabric, you could use KQL to query these data as well, right? And if we are on the next slide, this is a little bit more, or this is a little bit more what we are dealing with now. So you see all of these different tasks that will be tested. But the tasks we will concentrate on right now in this session will be, first of all, implementing lifecycle management in Fabric, CI/CD, right? Configuring security and governance a little bit. And then another thing, and you see that this is a big portion of the test, is 30 to 35% is monitoring and optimizing. So we will talk a little bit about monitoring Fabric items. We will talk about how to identify and resolve errors, which is a very, I think, a very important skill that that the data engineer should have, right? Because there are always some kinds of errors you have to deal with. And another thing, which is very important, is optimizing performance, because as you all know, and we will cover this a little bit later, but as you all know, is that Fabric is charged on the capacity units, right? And so it makes a huge difference if you have a query that runs for an hour, or if you have a query which will give you the same result set, but it only runs for like 3 seconds or something like this, right? So this is a very important task for a data engineer as well, to optimize the queries and optimize the performance, right? Okay, so let's have a little bit. So if we are talking about a data engineer perspective of things, right?
Wait, I'm
There
just
was
gonna pop in one second,
yeah,
just to make a real quick note of this AKA link down on the screen.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah, the study guide is really helpful for the
yes,
exam. So
yes,
what we're showing here are just kind of the high level items, but this is going to also show you the details. So if you're
exactly.
using these sessions to prepare for the exam, check out the study
Yeah,
guide for sure.
yeah, you should this, and the study guide is on Microsoft Learn. And another thing, what is very cool as well, is if you are on Microsoft Learn, there are also these applied skills, right? And there are some applied skills which also are connected to what we do here. For example, there is an applied skill about real-time intelligence, where you can, and the applied skills is like you will be given a task, and then you have to solve the task on your own in a virtual environment. And this is a good thing, because then you have some hands-on experiences, right? Which is really cool. But talking about the data engineering or data engineering certification, Stephanie, I think you know there was something in the past, right? And
Yes,
this
the
was, yeah,
203. Yes, indeed.
yes, exactly. So if we have a look at the DP-203, so it has the same direction for data engineers, but with a broader range, with the range of Azure services, with for example, Synapse, data lakes, stream analytics, all of this. And so the primary focus was on data storage and pipelines and stuff like this, which also is so the DP-700 has all of this as well, but focused on Fabric, right? So because and the good thing is that many of the skills, if you already have passed the DP-203, many of the skills are also tested in the DP-700, but Fabric oriented. And so many things, like for example pipelines and stuff like this, is very similar. So if you already prepared for DP-203, or if you already have taken this, then you might the step to do the DP-700 might be not so big. And there is another thing is, and this is something which we have to tell as well. So the DP-203 is deprecated, right? So it will be retired on end of March, right? And on the other hand, the DP-700 was introduced last year on FabCon Europe, and it was in beta status, but now it is in the main status. So what you could do now is you can take the DP-700, right?
Yep,
And this is
absolutely.
what we try to prepare you for. Okay, so before we dig into all of our subjects, let's have a little bit of an introduction to Microsoft Fabric. So I think we can do this very quickly because maybe you, if you are already familiar with Fabric, you have seen these slides and these things many times, right? But anyway, so if you are new, first of all, what we would suggest is watch the other videos, right? And the other thing is, let's talk a little bit about Fabric. So Fabric is the unified data platform in the area of AI. And what Fabric does is Fabric is the approach to have like an analytical platform as a software as a service, right? If we are thinking about analytical platforms, we are always thinking about a platform which is composed of many different tools, maybe even from many different vendors and stuff like this. And it's a very, very cumbersome task to build such a platform. And on the other hand, you have to have a very, very high skill level to manage such a platform, right? Because you have to have skills in each of these different vendor tools. Not with Fabric. Fabric is this software as a service approach. So everything you need for data analytics is in there. So you have a data factory. The data factory is used for ingesting data. You have a data engineering part where you can work on your data, where you can enhance your data. And the good thing is that Fabric will just build on your skill level you have. So when you're coming more from the Power BI side of things, you can use the data flows Gen 2 to do data engineering. But maybe you are a more seasoned programmer and coming from Python side, right? Then you can use PySpark within the Spark clusters, right, for data engineering. Then there is the data warehousing. I think we will cover the data warehousing a little bit later, but what you can do is you can put in data in data warehousing for analytics. For sure, there's the data science part where you can do data science on your data within Python, for example, within notebooks. A thing which I am very interested in is real-time intelligence. Real-time intelligence is all about streaming data. So if you have some streaming data and want to analyze this, you can do this with real-time intelligence. And the good thing is you can do this, well, while the data streams in, right? So you have a real-time insights into your real-time into your streaming data. And for sure, the thing I think most people who are watching this are familiar with is Power BI. Power BI is the visualization of this whole analytics stack within Fabric. So with Power BI, you can visualize your data, and within the Power BI reports, people can analyze the data like everything like the cross filtering and stuff like this, right? And this is the platform, and everything is built and if you are familiar with the Power BI service, then you will instantly recognize everything because Fabric looks exactly the same than the Power BI service with all these different additions and with all these different tools, right? So heading to the next slide, we can so data engineering in Fabric I already told about, right? So what we could do is we can build a lake house to put in all our data, and then we can, for example, use a Spark runtime on this data. And if we're talking about a lake house, the lake house is built upon the one lake, right? And the one lake is a gigantic data lake. And what you could put in the one lake is not only tabular data like CSV files or Parquet files or stuff like this. You can also put in videos, you can put in audio, you can put in all kind of files you can think of, and then you can use, for example, Spark to analyze this to see what's going on in the video or something like this. And another thing And there is one of my very, very favorite tools. I don't know how it is to you, Stephanie, but one of my very favorite tools is Visual Studio Code. I live in Visual Studio Code, right? And you can
It's
facilitate
delightful,
Visual
yeah.
Studio Code. It's so cool. It's really it's so cool. And you can use Visual Studio Code to build solutions within Microsoft Fabric. And and all this data engineering you have here is completely integrated to Fabric, right? So could it be that you use Spark? Could it be that you use Data Flows Gen 2? No matter what, it is integrated into Fabric, and you can more or less instantly use the knowledge you already have to do data engineering in Fabric, right? Very cool.
Very cool. Yep,
Yes,
absolutely. And then I think that takes us into the first real subject area that we're going to be covering in more detail
exactly.
today. Um, and I think there's a nice transition there between using Visual Studio Code and this next bit we're going to talk about, which
Oh yes,
is CI/CD. So hopefully in the chat you have all come up with your favorite meaning for CI/CD. We're going to talk maybe more about the more traditional meaning of it, which is the continuous integration and continuous delivery. Maybe not quite as exciting as whatever you've come up with in the chat, but it's still pretty cool. So we'll talk about that. So as a Fabric data engineer, you are responsible for designing and building and maintaining all of these Fabric items. You collaborate with other people a lot. In most cases, you're going to be collaborating with other people. So with your team, you need to release changes from development through production in different Fabric workspaces. So with multiple people, there's a need to incrementally release and integrate your item changes, and you want everything to move really nice and smoothly, right? So this is our lifecycle management within Fabric. There are a few different ways to do things in Fabric. There's not just one. So, depending on your use case, you're going to find the right solution for you. But we're going to talk about deployment pipelines and source control integration to help you achieve this. So we've also got integrations with GitHub and Azure DevOps to help improve your process. So from the study guide, this section is going to be that implementing lifecycle management in Fabric. There are even more details in the study guide about configuring version control, implementing database projects, and creating and configuring deployment pipelines. So just remember that everything that we're going over here isn't necessarily going to be covering everything on the exam. Definitely look at
yeah,
more detail and learn. Okay, so these are the three areas we're going to be talking about today, CI/CD and Fabric. So this is definitely going to be on the exam. You'll definitely want to learn about it.
yeah,
So we've got Git, we've got deployment pipelines, and we've got the Fabric REST APIs. So we can use a combination of these in whatever works best for our use case. So let's talk a little bit more about each one. So first we've got implementing version control with Git integration. So where we do where we really do most of our work in Fabric is in workspaces. So you will set this up in a workspace. You will choose if you're going to use Azure DevOps or GitHub. Both are supported now. And it's very easy to set up. You can see you just click on the Git integration, and then you'll connect with your provider and you'll authenticate. So once you do that, then you will connect to a repository and a branch, and you will click this connect and sync button. Now you're all set up. So previously, prior to this feature in Fabric, version control and Git integration for Power BI items was always much harder. So it's really nice now that we have this option to just click on this, set it up, and we're good to go. And I think you're the person you're going to be presenting with, Frank, in Vegas, Kevin Chant. I think he has some blog posts
oh
on
yes,
this, right?
he has awesome. He has really many blog posts on CI/CD. So this is one of his very very much like topics, right? So
Yep. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. And then once you set it up, then you can see within your workspace the status of each of the items that you have in that workspace, and if it's synced up with ADO or GitHub at the time, or just whatever the sync status is. So you can, make your changes using VS Code Frank's favorite, and get those into your repository, and then you can push those changes into your workspace. You can go the other way also. You can make changes in the workspace, and then you can sync it up with GitHub as well. So it's kind of a nice back and forth situation.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the highest level, quick kind of Git integration story there. But there's a lot more to it than that. So make sure you go out and learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, second up, we want to talk about is the deployment pipelines. This is another way, and you can use a combination, or you don't have to. Again, it really just depends on your situation and what works best for you. But deployment pipelines, they've been around for a long time in Power BI, so this isn't new, but they are constantly improving. Like we have new things now where you can see a version history, you can add comments. So they're definitely improving, and it's definitely a good idea to consider using both the Git integration and deployment pipelines, depending on what you want to do. Super easy to set up. Again, you just create a deployment pipeline, you define which workspaces and how many stages you're going to have, and you just set it up and create it. So you can use these together. You can always see the status. You can see whether your different stages are in sync or what needs to be updated. And quick note that not all Fabric items are yet supported with Git and or deployment pipelines. They're always adding new. A lot of them are in preview. You can see which items are supported in the Learn docs. So definitely check those out. And the community posts for sure. There are a whole bunch of really good community posts on different strategies.
That's true.
Now, finally, yeah, sorry, Frank, did you want to add something?
No, I just said it's true.
Okay, cool. Okay, so finally, this is what we're showing you so far. You can kind of imagine this is a fairly manual process. However, there are also the REST APIs. So if you need to kind of take it next level and do a lot more automation, the Fabric REST APIs will allow you to do that. So if you have a lot of repeating processes that you would like to automate, then you might want to consider adding the REST APIs into your bag of tricks for your lifecycle management for Fabric. You can do things like committing the changes, updating the workspace, reviewing pending and uncommitted changes, and everything you see here. So there's a lot you can do to kind of add automation into your bag of tricks.
Exactly. And you can easily use this from different environments. So I don't know, Stephanie, if you know that I'm writing a PowerShell module for the Fabric real-time intelligence stuff, right? And it's really it's out there on GitHub. And it's really easy to access the Fabric REST API. So even I can do it, right? So it's like it's really easy to build stuff like this. And so I didn't put in anything about CI/CD, but if you're interested in doing this, you can just grab my module and see how I do the other stuff, because it's exactly the same. You're just talking to other REST APIs within Fabric, but the setup is the same.
Oh, that's a great tip, because a lot of times it's the setup that's the hardest part. So if people can take your setup and then just tweak it for their needs, that's going to be helpful.
I was totally amazed how easy it is to authenticate on the Fabric REST API, because when I was building this during the past summit last year, right? And I was thinking that this would be the hardest part, but it is not. It's really easy to authenticate, and then everything from there is like it's really easy to program against this.
Cool. Well, I'm going to be doing that as soon as we're done with this session. So thanks for the tip.
Yeah, welcome.
All right, so that was CI/CD, super quick. And remember, go out. There are more resources. Check them out. So now we're just going to talk about monitoring and optimization a little bit, and then Frank's going to get into some more details for the second half. From the study guide, again, monitoring and optimizing is 30 to 35% of the whole exam. So if that's what you're here for, you definitely want to pay attention to this section. There's monitoring Fabric items, identifying and resolving errors, and optimizing performance. All of them are super important for your Fabric implementations. So let's talk about, why is monitoring and optimization in Fabric so important? Well, a lot of times we start things, they're small, they're easy, but As our workflows become more complex, they scale up, the performance can degrade. So we need to make sure that we monitor things. It's a cycle. You're never done. You want to constantly be monitoring for many reasons, right? You want things to be fast and efficient. There's also cost control, because everything you're doing in Fabric is consuming your compute resources. So if you've got something that's hogging up a lot, it's going to possibly impact other areas. And it's also, you might get throttled, that's a bummer. And while Microsoft would be happy to take your money to have you scale up to a higher capacity, you might not want to do that route. So I've definitely had many customers where they felt like, oh no, we have to scale up. We don't have enough resources. But it turned out really they just needed some improvements made to some semantic models that were hogging up a lot of resources. So it definitely will impact cost control. Better resource allocation, kind of the same thing we just talked about. Timeliness, proactive issue detection and resolution. Something might work today, but it might break tomorrow. So you need to constantly be monitoring to make sure that your end users are happy and you're not, going over the resources that you have. So how can we do this? What can we monitor in Fabric? We have a number of things that we can monitor. Here are the solutions. So we've got all of these different activities that we need to keep track of that perform tasks like data movement and transformation. So a lot of activities will have dependencies on one another. So you have to make sure that everything is going as expected and it's not going to affect or cause problems downstream. So the things that we should definitely be monitoring are our data pipeline activities. These are activities that perform a data ingestion task, and they can have a bunch of different steps. So you need to be looking for failure of jobs, things that maybe took a decent amount of time in the past, but now it's really slow. You want to watch that. Data flows also are another tool for loading and transforming data. So you'll want to see how long it takes. Sometimes they start out efficient, but then some issue arises and now it's really slowing things down, or you run into errors, something has changed. So you'll want to monitor that. Semantic model refreshes as well. You want to see how long that takes. Every time you make a change to the model, it's going to need to be refreshed. So you'll want to monitor that. Spark jobs, notebooks, lake houses. You'll want to monitor those, as well as event streams, one of Frank's favorite, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
These are all areas that you need.
Do you know that you can monitor Fabric with Fabric itself? What you could do is, no, it's not a joke. So what you can do is you can get all of this data, put this into real-time intelligence, then and then in real-time intelligence you can there is these this reflex. So what you could do is formerly known as data activator. So what you could do is you can trigger on certain things. So for example, if your notebook is executed automatically and it doesn't run because of reasons, right? You can trigger on this and then you can get a warning or an email or stuff like this. Really interesting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we do it though? So there are some best practices here. We have to know what we need to be monitoring, collect and review data, resolve issues, and then optimize performance. And even though we're seeing these kind of like in a line, like it's a step-by-step process, really it's more circular. You're going to be just going around and around, and things are going to change. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on all the time. You have to review logs and metrics regularly. You have to take action, and you want to monitor performance. So where do we do this? Well, Fabric has a lot of places. We don't have time to go into all the details of where you will be monitoring things within Fabric. I do think, they're trying to kind of consolidate and make it easier on us, but right now there are many places to look. So there's the monitoring hub. This is going to show us, details on our activity status, start and end time, duration, activity statistics, so we can see if things failed or if things took a lot longer than we expected. This is a really good place to look for that. In addition to the monitoring hub, which is, you just navigate to that on the left side, navigation in Fabric, we also have the admin monitoring workspace. So if you're an admin, you'll have access to this. But if you're not, you can give cookies to the admin and hopefully they'll share it with you so that you can see this. But there are a number of reports in here. So for example, this one is the feature usage and adoption. This is going to show you an overview of multiple capacities and workspaces. So you can see all the details. There's an inventory page. You can see which things aren't being used. So this is a really good place to look. And then finally, we also have the capacity metrics app. So if you're a capacity admin, you can see this. Again, they can share it with other people. So, if they're your friend, maybe you'll get to see this app. This is where you're going to see how much compute all of these resources are taking. So in that case I mentioned before where I had, a customer, they thought they had to get a bigger capacity. We were able to look in here and identify and find out exactly which semantic model was the problem and narrow it down and fix that for them. So, you're really going to want to kind of make use of all of these different tools and areas to monitor your environment, your capacity, all of your workloads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank to talk more in detail about optimization.
Exactly. So all of this information you get from this monitoring apps can be used to see where do we have problems, right? Because it's always like this that you have to concentrate on things where you have the bigger problems, right? For example, let's say a query running for an hour or stuff like this, and and then you have to think about how can we optimize this. And talking about Fabric is a very complex thing. So there are many things. And of course, because you have all of these things can be optimized as well, right, Stephanie? So there
Right.
would be, for example, you could optimize the lakehouse tables. You can optimize pipelines. You can optimize data warehouses. You can for sure optimize event streams and event houses. And if we are looking at the queries we are using, we can optimize the Spark performance, and we can for sure optimize our query performance. So more or less, if we're thinking about, for example, SQL queries, more or less the same you would do with our on-prem SQL server, with one distinction. The distinction is if you have an on-prem SQL server and you have the box and it's just sitting around somewhere and you can use it or not use it. Here it is a little bit different because the moment you do an optimization within Fabric, you are saving money, right? Because it's a big difference if your query runs an hour or if it just runs for 3 seconds or stuff like this, right? So yeah, let's have a little bit more look on the optimization things we can do. So, well, when we're thinking about the areas we have, so we have more or less what we have is we have storage, right? Like the storage which is used for lakehouses, data warehouses, storage which is used for databases, like the SQL databases within Fabric or even the KQL databases. And the other thing is we have compute. Compute is mainly Spark. So if you spin up a Spark cluster and if you run Spark notebooks with Python code in it, with R code in it, this is another thing that can be optimized, and for sure processing. So what we have is, for example, we have event streams, we have pipelines, and in all of these areas, we can think about how to optimize stuff, right? And so and below all of this, there is the one lake, and in the one lake is used, and in the one lake there all of the data, except from some things like the data from the SQL databases or the data which is in the KQL databases, all of this data is stored in the one lake. And so if we think a little bit about well, let's say storage optimization, what could we do there? So let's think about this for a moment. So first of all, if we're thinking about the lakehouse tables, we could use the data lake optimization techniques, right? Like compaction or like Z order clustering, because if we are thinking about how this data is stored in Parquet files, and everything we could do to optimize these Parquet files, we can do here as well. Another thing which is also interesting, and this is something which is interesting for query execution, are things like partitioning and caching. So if we're thinking about partitioning, we can think about how could we partition our data, right? Usually, if you look at data, you might be able to partition it on a date perspective, right? Because if you want to retrieve data from the sales from last year, right, you don't need the sales from this year, and you don't need the sales from the year before last year. You only need the data from last year, and so you could partition. Or, for example, what you could do as well is you could geo partitioning. If you're interested in data from Germany, right, then you don't need the data from the US because you're only interested in the data from Germany, right? Another interesting thing, and this is something we will come to a little bit later as well, is caching. So what you could do is, first of all, you could try to use caching, and the other thing is, what you could even do is you could work with materialized views, which is also a good thing. So a materialized view is like a view saved as a table, and if you have views where there are much calculations in it and stuff like this, it might be better to use a materialized view, because not every time the view is accessed, all these calculations will be executed, right? So what we could do, if we're looking at the data warehouses, we can analyze and adjust the table storage formats there as well. And another interesting thing, which is also directly connected to the execution and to the performance of our queries, is, for example, if we use column store indices, right? So if we have data and the data is very similar, right? Then if we can use column store indices, because this very similar data can be compressed very high, right? Because it's so similar, right? And this will also lead to faster query execution if we use these indices. Another thing, and I already talked a little bit about this, is if we have the distribution keys and partition strategies, we can monitor these to balance performance across the nodes, right? Another thing which you have to bear in mind is, so what you could think of is, okay, if I have these indices, I can put an index on every column or stuff like this. But this is not a good idea as well, because if you do this, then other operations like writing data will just be slowed down, right? So what you have to do is you have to find a good balance between too few indices and too much indices, right? This is and what's right for you. There is no general answer for this. So what's right for you depends much on your data and much on how you query your data and what's interesting for you, right?
It
This is
depends,
something
of
you have to
course,
do.
right? We're
It's
we're
Yeah,
both
it depends.
consultants, so it
Yeah,
depends.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, but you have to think about which data you're processing, and you have to think about how do I query this data. And this is something where you can derive the strategy: which indices do I need, and how can or which petitions I need, right? Um, yeah, well, so let's think a little bit about compute and processing optimization, right? Because this is another thing. So what we could think about is, first of all, pipelines, right? So if we're thinking about pipelines, we should think about optimizing our data movement. So pipelines can, for example, be used to transform the data within your medallion architecture from, say, bronze to silver, right? And what's important here is to think about, when I transform the data through a pipeline, do I really have to read all of the data from my bronze layer, or can I just put in so a thing would be, for example, you read a very broad table, but what you are ingesting into your silver layer are maybe only two columns, right? So then in this case, that you shouldn't read the broad table, but what you should do is you should read only the two columns and then process the two columns afterwards, right? So yeah, well, this is another thing, is if you're thinking about like data warehouse scenarios where you are getting data from some source systems, right? You have to think about, well, would it be possible to build like an incremental load? So in this case, so what you could do is, first of all, you could each night you can load the whole source system, right, with every data. But the problem is that not all of this data will change over day. So what would be a very good strategy here as well is if you just implement an incremental load, which just detects which data has changed, and only the changed data has to be transferred, because all of the other data you already have, because this was loaded the night before, right? And this would be a good thing. And so the other thing is, if we are thinking about real-time data, then what we could do here as well is creating an event stream. Within the event stream, we can filter data. So what we could do is, as data streams in, we can filter data, and we can only filter the data we are interested in, right? So we don't have thinking about maybe IoT devices or stuff like this, right? There is so many data flowing in, but you are only interested in a part of this data. And what you could do within an event stream is you can just filter for this part where you're interested in, and all the other data will not be taken into account, right? The other thing is, if we're thinking about a Spark cluster for example, for executing Python code or stuff like this, what you could do is you could optimize your cluster sizing. So the default cluster, if you don't optimize anything, Fabric will spin up a medium-sized cluster, right? But maybe this medium-sized cluster is, for what you are doing, is much too large, right? So what you could do, you can go for a smaller cluster. And what you can do here as well is a very interesting thing, and maybe you should have a look into this as well, is you can build environments, and within the environments, you can either define the size of the Spark cluster. And another thing which is interesting here as well is, so if we are thinking about complex Python notebooks, you might install different libraries, different stuff you need in your notebook, and you can do this within an environment as well. So what you usually see, if you have all of these demo notebooks, there is so many things installing before the notebook will be executed. And this is the all this installment of libraries and stuff. This will be done every time you execute the notebook. But if you have this in production, it would be a good idea to just create an environment, install the components in this environment, and then use this environment to run your notebook. So not every time your notebook is executed, all the prerequisites are installed, because this doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, well, this is something. And what you could do there as well is you can tune the partition sizes, you can tune the caching, or you can do all of this to optimize your Spark environment, right? So let's have another look at the query optimization. If we look at query optimization, I already talked a little bit about materialized views. A materialized view is something like a view which is stored as a table, right? And if we're thinking about a common data warehousing scenario where the data is loaded only once a day or something like this, right? And you have a view, and this view is calculating many numbers based on the data which the view queries. There is no use in doing these calculations over and over again, because the data didn't change over the day, right? So what you could do here is you can create a materialized view and update the materialized view every time you reload data. So another thing, we already talked about this, is indexing. It's the same with every database system, right? You can just create an index on a column, or on a combination of columns, to speed up querying. So you can think about this like an index of a book, right? If you have a book, and if you want to see where in the book is the term Fabric or the term query optimization, you go to the index, and in the index it says, well, it's on page 3, and it's on page 4, and it's on page 27. And it's much quicker to do it this way than to browse to all of the book and read everything, and see where the terms are that you're looking for, right? What you could also do is you can also optimize query patterns, and you can and another thing to have an idea about a query is executed is if you have a look at the query plan, and if you monitor query plans, just to see, okay, what's happening, why is my query executing this way? And this also gives hints about what you should do to optimize your query. For example, if you see that there are like table scans or stuff like this, then you can think, well, for some reasons an index is missing or something like this. And this is a very interesting. This is a very interesting thing as well, which you can use to optimize your queries. And I think Stephanie, it's the same with me, right? I think you have seen optimizations where you have a query which runs for an hour, and after optimization, it runs like in 3 seconds or stuff like this. I've seen this many, many times, right?
Yep.
So, and this is really what you can do.
Yep.
Okay, so let's
Last
go to the
section.
next
Yeah.
slide.
We've only
Last
got about
section,
10 minutes
right?
left, and we're going
Yeah,
to
but
cover
we will do this.
security in 10
Yeah, yeah.
minutes.
Security is always a very interesting and a very important thing because, yeah, well, we want to exactly know who accesses our data and what they do with this, right? So let's have a look at how security works in Microsoft Fabric. So first of all, Fabric is based upon Microsoft Entra ID, which is a good thing because everything you did already for Microsoft 365, Office 365 or whatnot, like building groups and stuff like this, can be reused in Microsoft Fabric because this is already there. So and then what is done is if you are using the browser, so if you're using the browser or client application, you will be authenticated through Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, right? And then you will be you can access either a web front end or you could access the client applications, and you can use and then you can use data from the metadata platform and the backend capacity platform, right? Let's have a look at the next slide to get a little bit more in detail. So if we're thinking about data security, how does this work? So as I was already told you is that there is a Fabric integration into the Microsoft Entra tenant. So, and this ensures a logical data isolation across regions, and which because Fabric is also a multi-tenant system, and so it secures also the multi-tenant management. So you can only see your data, and another client can only see his data, right? So let's talk a little bit about the data. So if we're thinking about data, data can have different forms, like no, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the encryption. Yeah, exactly. So data can have different forms. Like data could be in rest, stored somewhere, right? And the data which is stored in the one lake is encrypted. While it is stored there, then data could be in transit when data is transferred, for example, to your Power BI report or to your or it is transformed to other things, right? And when this data is in transit, so when data is transferred from one place to the other, then this data is also secured using TLS. And another thing is what you could do as well is so thinking about the authorization of all of this. This is done by role-based access control, as you know from any other Azure service as well, right? So there are different roles, and you can put user into the different roles, and these roles define what the user can do. So next slide is about the data compliance, which is also an interesting thing. So first of all, if we are thinking about data, then it's always interesting where this data is stored. And what you could do is you can store data either in your home region or you can have a multi-region a tenant. And in this case, you can store the data there where it has to be stored from a compliance perspective, because there are certain regulations. You cannot store data everywhere. Maybe, for example, in my case, you have to store data in the European Union, right? And there are many compliance certifications that Microsoft meets with Fabric, so as GDPR and stuff like this. And what we can see through auditing and monitoring is we can see and track the access and changes on the data to improve our data governance strategy and to have data compliance, so we can exactly see who has accessed what and who has changed what, right? Because this is a very, very very crucial information. Another thing, what you could do is, so thinking about Fabric is, if you, for example, using the Fabric Fabric trial capacity or stuff like this, right? This is used through the internet. But maybe if you're in a production environment, you don't want to do this. Maybe you want to have additional layer of security. And what you can do is you can use a private endpoint, and so you have network level isolation through Azure Private Link, right? This would be another thing, and this would be something I would recommend to clients when they use in production, right? So let's have a look at the monitoring and security compliance, what we can do there. So there are many things, and regarding the certification, you should know all of these, and you should have a look in all of these, like activity logs, like audit logs. There is this data access monitoring where you can see who has accessed the confidential data, for example. What you could do on this as well is you can have alerts and notifications. So if there's something going on within Fabric, right? People accessing data they shouldn't access or stuff like this, right? You can have alerts that will notify you about this and say, well, there is something going on. And for sure, there's integration with the monitoring tools. And what you can have here as well is compliance reports. So let's wrap up everything by practical tips for success in DP-700. So if we're thinking about this, there are many things you could do to excel in DP-700. And this is, for example, what you should have is you should have hands-on practice, right? So that you really, that you not only know Fabric from some slides or stuff like this, but that you really get your feet dirty and really use hands-on practice. You can, in the internet, you find the study guides and resources on the Microsoft Learn pages. There are also practice tests to learn, so you have at least an impression of what the questions might be. Microsoft Learn courses we already mentioned, and what you could do as well is you can build your own sample projects just to get familiar with all of this, right? Okay, so I think these are very interesting things, but Stephanie.
Yes, and you can see there's a ton for us to know on
Yes.
security, monitoring, optimization, all of
Yeah.
this. So,
Yes.
yeah, definitely, if you can make it to FabCon, you'll want to go to Frank's session. Also, speaking of those practical tips, I know some of the previous sessions were really focused on just, what is it like to take the exam? I highly recommend those
Yeah.
sessions.
Yes. Yes.
If you haven't taken one before, they're really helpful. So again, you can see some of these other ones that have already been done. You can see the recordings, and then tomorrow we're going to have fabric administration and governance, and then after that there's the prepare for exam day. So these will all be really helpful, and I'm just going to kind of whip through these next ones just so we can have a minute or two for questions. But quick reminder about okay, about FabCon. Here's that discount code again. So if it is something you're interested in, use this MS Cust for $150 discount. And then, come say hi to myself and Frank if you do come. And then another shout out here to the DataViz World Championships. I think this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be just so fun to see all the submissions. I'm really looking forward to this specifically at the conference as well. And here's that discount code again for this exam. So, once you're feeling confident, you're ready to go. You can use this discount code to get 50% off of that exam code or that exam cost. So with that, I think there was so much content, we didn't have a ton of extra time for questions, but if we have any.
Yes, but on the other hand, I think the moderators have done an extraordinary job to answer all the questions which were on the chat, right?
Yes, always. Thank you so much, moderators.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, one
Big
question.
shout out to the moderators. Okay, so one question is incoming. Waiting.
And while we're waiting, again, just a huge thank you to everybody in the chat. I think this is one of the best resources for preparing for these exams. So,
I think so too.
I'm so grateful to the team that puts this together at Microsoft, the community team, as well as all the people that participate and help us all get through.
Exactly.
All
Okay,
right,
well, the
time to
question is
wrap.
not coming through. So yeah, okay, awesome. So
Okay,
thank you very much for watching.
thank you,
Oh, and
everyone.
okay, so bye bye and good luck with the exam, right?
Yep.